the Madman! Welcome to a custom card review with the God That Crawls. 9 mana, 4/7 Taunt. Death Rattle, summon a Sludge Belcher. One of those cards that summons a guy who summons a guy, but this one I actually think is pretty okay because it's a low attack, high health taunt. It's meant for control. Sludge Belcher is a universally well-known card. Very comparable to Void Lord, except this is neutral and can't be cheated out, but the stats and the resulting Death Rattle is actually very comparable, and Void Lord isn't that big a problem if it's not a demon and can't be cheated out and resummoned with Gul'dan, so I like it. Not that terribly excited at the design, but it's decent, so I'll give it 4 stars, and balance 5 stars. Underdog story. Warrior 2 mana spell, which says draw a card, overkill, win the game instead of losing. If you draw a card and it causes you to fatigue for at least 1 more health than you currently have, then you win the game instead of losing. Design, 3 stars. Balance, 1 star. So here's the problem with Underdog's story. It is a lot like Mecha'thun. There should be a very big cautionary tale about everything, every card that says win the game, obviously. This is a card that says win the game on 2 mana. In some senses, it could be considered kind of similar as a 2 mana Mecha'thun, where your preparation, just like Mecha'thun, is getting rid of your deck, but instead of needing to kill off Mecha'thun, all you have to do is set yourself up so that you fatigue for a lot. You could easily have a deck which gets yourself a lot of armor early, and then you just do that series of combos and you take 6, 7, 8, 9 fatigue, and then 9 kills you. Or it's just really flexible with how you can die, really, when you have that big a barrier. It's like, oh, okay, if you set me within 28 of death, then I'll just win. I like the idea of the card, which is why I think it can be salvaged. But the reason why the balance is a 1 star is because this is one of those rare cards where I'm like, this card just might have something going for it. It might need to be casually nerfed by 6 mana though, or something like that. So I was thinking, okay, well obviously at 10 mana it would be very hard to combo, and that might be okay. So we need to give it a little bit of combo possibility. So what about 8 mana? 8 mana avoids Acolyte of Pain, which is the major problem point. It still lets you get a bunch of cards potentially with something like Battle Rage. So I think making this 8 mana might be sufficiently difficult to make it an interesting OTK type of deck that you would build around. But I will say this, even at 8 mana, you would have to be very careful of this card. I want to strike that fear in all of you custom Hearthstone designers that, put the word win, the game, on your card. I think this card is still scary when you nerf it by 6 mana. Ebb and Flow, a Shaman spell, 3 mana, deals 4 damage on odd turns, restores 10 health on even turns. A little bit like the Witchwood Worgen mechanic, where it swaps depending on the turn. I like it a lot. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. Very flavorful, and there's an easy way to implement it. You add the card into your deck, and then it just shows up as Ebb on odd turns, and then Flow on even turns. Well balanced, 3 mana to deal 4, 3 mana to restore 10. Your opponent can play around it, something you'll want to keep track of potentially against Shamans. Could be a mechanic that Shamans have. There's only one slight downside I can think of it, which is like when the game is turn 20, you, the owner of Ebb and Flow, will know whether it's Ebb or Flow, but the opponent might have lost track. And it's kind of a pain to think of, okay, this is turn 19, okay, this is turn 20. But I think that's a minor cost. Underload, a Shaman spell, 1 mana, gain 1 mana crystal, next turn only. Design, 3 stars, balance, 1 star. Shamans do have precedent for setting up for future turns, with a card like Farsight granting you a discount in the future for the card that you draw. Main problem with Underload right now is it's ridiculously weak. It's like the coin, except you're paying 1 mana for the coin. And also, instead of 1 mana now, it's 1 mana next turn. Which is especially bad because when you're at 10 mana, 1 extra mana for next turn literally does nothing. Whereas with the coin, you can at least spend a little bit of mana and then coin and then play another card. With Underload, that's not possible. So I like the idea of spending some mana now to get more mana later. but it's a very difficult card to print, mostly because 10 mana plus, it does nothing. So first suggestion, make it 0 mana. By the way, I still think it's weak at 0 mana. Second suggestion, maybe make it a higher mana and then grant more mana crystals. Maybe have it have a little bit more wordiness by say, if you are at 10 mana crystals, draw a card. But there would be a right mana cost to pay now and then gain a benefit later, which is worth exploring. A Bird in the Bush. Druid spell, 5 mana. Choose a friendly minion, choose one, summon a copy of it, or add 2 copies of it to your hand. For those of you not aware of the saying, it's a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, indicating that if you have the bird in the hand, then the value of that is worth more than the potential value of 2 that are in the bush. Wise value words. So this plays off of that idea. It's not a perfect replica of it since you're actually getting 2 in your hand versus 1 copy in play, but the idea is there. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. I like the throwing of the idiom out. There are enough idioms out there across the different cultures that this could be copied and rewritten in different languages. Just a happy little spell. Musketeer, 3 mana 4/1 warrior minion with Echo and Rush. If you control 3 of this minion, gain +1/+4. Design 3 stars, balance 3 stars. I'll start off by echoing the author's wishes of the flavor, and I will say there's a lot of flavor in this one. It's a 4/1, which is kind of a play on the Musketeers being all 4/1. And then if you control 3 of this minion, gain +1/+4. In other words, 1, 4, oh! Ho-ho! Very top-down design, which means they were going for the play on words first, and then balance came as a concern second. And that's a problem, because it means there's very little that you can change about the card to still hold this wordplay. Because right now it's not balanced for 9 mana, 15/15 worth of rush. And yes, as soon as you kill one, the others all revert back to 4/1s, but you would probably be able to rush with the other 2 first, and then kill 2 things, maybe having both survive, and then kill a 3rd thing with your 3rd Musketeer. Maybe even that survives, but if it doesn't survive, you already got so much value out of the card, and you have the lingering threat of 2 4/1s. You know, honestly, a really easy way to balance this card is just to get rid of the if you control 3 of this minion. You could simply print a 3 mana 4/1 Echo Rush, and that would be a fine card. Breton Builder. 2 mana 2/2 mech, Battlecry, summon a frozen friend builder. Oh, how cute. And everyone probably upvoted this because it is very cute. Design 5 stars, balance 2 stars. So it is a cool idea. Like, we've played with some minions that come into play, that can freeze themselves, that make your other minions frozen, but never quite a minion that summons a frozen minion. The problem, though, is this really is a 2 mana 4/4, and that is a lot. It's really off balance. It would be almost an auto-include for every single deck in the game, and that just can't stand. So, looking at Murloc Tidehunter as a balance point, which is a 2 mana 2/1 which summons a 1/1, I think Friend Builder can appropriately be a 2 mana 2/1. This is obviously a big nerf to the card, but currently it is very overpowered. David! 5 mana 4/2, Battlecry, destroy a minion with 8 or more health. Design 3 stars, balance 5 stars. The flavor here is, of course, that David is a well-known character that can take down giants, and giants famously have 8 or more health. In terms of design, this is just Big Game Hunter, with literally Big Game Hunter stats, and just targeting health instead of attack. I will give a little bit of cleverness towards the 8 or more health instead of 7 more health to be an exact replica just opposite, because really more things have 8 or more health than 7 or more attack. So the design, not that interesting, but also out of flavor for World of Warcraft. Obviously such a card could never be printed as is due to the religious tones. In terms of balance, I think it's a fine tech card. Mr. Bigglesworth. Hunter 1 mana 1/1, Beast. Battlecry, your spells that summon minions Also summon Mr. Bigglesworth. Design 2 stars, balance 3 stars. So this is in an interesting spot where the design is really bad because the high roll potential of it, where if you draw the card and play it on turn 1, like you're so much more favored to win the game, that's terrible design. So for such an effect, you really should have start of the game something something, but obviously then it would need a very heavy drawback because to automatically get this effect is big. So needs a lot of changing to make work. Balance, surprisingly, it's too weak. So you have the high roll potential that if you draw it on turn 1, yeah, cool. All of your spells that summon minions suddenly, also summon a 1/1 with it. Unleash the Hounds, or Spellstone, and all that jazz. But it's too weak because while there are many cards that summon minions, there aren't that many. And this card is pretty bad late in the game. So it's got this terrible high roll potential, but also it's like just weak. So no one would really play it. It seems like the perfect candidate for a start of game effect, and I don't see that often. But watch out! Start of game is super dangerous. Twisted Ironbark. Druid, 5 mana, 4/4. Battlecry, gain +4/+4 and taunt. Silence this minion at the start of your turn. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. Love it. It's a lot like Ironbark Protector. The turn you play it, 5 mana, 8/8 with taunt. And one might look at it and be like, oh my god! It's like a 5 mana 8 with taunt, how's that balance? Well, I mean, it's just for one turn, then afterwards it's just a 5 mana 4/4. It's a lot similar to the Tar Lurker. So Tar Lurker is a 5 mana 1/7 with taunt, but on the opponent's turns it's a 4/7. So yeah, that's not an 8/8, but it's a constant 4/7 with taunt. Sure, this card stops aggro the turn it comes out, but after that, it's just a 5 mana 4/4. It's an option that your opponents can kill it, but they don't have to take that option. So I think it's got an interesting counterplay element and also an exact timing that you want to play it element. There's your cards of the week for February 2nd. And in order to catch up, the next custom Hearthstone is going to be pretty spicy since it's going to feature my opinion of the best cards from the next 4 cards of custom Hearthstone. So we will speed up the timeline.